Hey guys, this is Danae and this is my third time making this video because I keep getting interrupted with calls. So I'm coming to you guys today with an interesting video topic that you might not expect from a new grad. So I have been at my job for 5 months now, and I was on the phone with my sister the other day, venting, talking to her about work, and she said to me, Danae, it sounds like you need a vacation. You sound like you're burnt out. And I thought to myself, how am I burnt out? And I haven't even worked for 6 months yet. So this is one of those topics that's going to be something that no one ever talks about. You know, once people decide to become a PA, it's all like all the rainbows and butterflies in the world, and no one really talks about like the negative aspects or the downsides or the things that you might not think about when you when you enter the workforce or even through PA school. So I will say I work in an underserved area, and you might say, okay, well, if you work in an underserved area, why can't you apply for National Health Service Corps or whatever? I work in emergency medicine, so I don't, my specialty doesn't qualify. So if you do work in an underserved area and you work in women's health, primary care, and pediatrics, you do have the option to apply for the National Health Service Corps. So that is an option for you. But since I work in emergency medicine, I do not have that privilege. So a lot of times when you're in an underserved area, you're also at an understaffed health facility, and in addition to being understaffed, sometimes your pay is not as high as if you went to another facility that wasn't underserved and that wasn't understaffed. So now everyone talks about, or some people like, you know, look at working in an underserved area as something that they really want to do. But I just want to make this video so that I could talk to people about like what it's really like to be in an underserved community. So you're at a hospital, you don't have the highest pay rate, you don't have enough staff, and then you have a patient population that is vulnerable as well. So it can be very, very challenging. And I will say that we finally got transport at my hospital. I was transporting all my own patients to X-ray, any type of imaging that they needed. I was the person transporting them. And at my hospital, I have seen 8-month attendings that are 8 months pregnant trying to push their own patients to imaging. And obviously, like, I stepped in and took over, and I'm like, please stop this right now, whatever is happening, let me help you. But yeah, so I will draw my own labs. I set up, like if I do a pelvic, I do all my own setup. And obviously I would clean up after myself. All the rooms, like we clean the rooms ourselves. The PAs clean the rooms themselves before they put a patient in the room. We call back our own patients. So I am really doing the job of a tech, a nurse, and a PA. And then I'm also expected to meet my, my patient goals, which is like 1 patient an hour, which isn't really even, like my last shift, I saw 18 patients. It was, yeah, I saw 18 patients, but when you see 18 patients, you also have to finish the documentation for 18 patients. So that's 18 patients of me calling them all back myself, cleaning every room that they were in. I was on the shift that was the later side of the day, so at 3 or 4 o'clock transport leaves. So transporting them to radiology when they needed imaging. So all of this, I'm doing all of these jobs. Or if the nurse is overwhelmed, I'm starting an IV so he or she can at least just, push the meds. They don't have to sit and start the IV. I draw my own lab. So there's a lot that I'm doing. So when my sister said, maybe you're burnt out, it's like, yeah. When I think about what I'm doing and how many patients I'm seeing, and then my 13-hour shift turning into a 15-hour shift or a 16-hour shift because I haven't finished any of my charts because I'm trying to see, as many patients as possible, I can totally understand the burnout. And then I'm also on a rotating schedule. So, when someone tells you you're going to do 3 weekend days, it doesn't sound like that much. Or when they tell you you're going to do 4 nights, but then it's like, it is a lot when you're coming off a week of nights and you're exhausted. So I just want to make this video to say that, you know, it is the first year out of PA school is going to be very challenging, and your number one priority has to be yourself, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anyone else. I will say that I used to be a very patient person, and I feel like now the majority of my patience is spent at work, and in my personal life I am no longer a patient person, and you never want your job to affect you in that type of negative way. And literally coming up for the next 6 weeks, my focus is getting more sleep, eating a better diet, and just working out, just to try to make myself as healthy as possible so that I can do the best job possible. So if anyone has any advice for managing stress, or if you feel like you are getting burnt out, I'm happy to take any recommendations. But for me, I'm definitely focusing on my health and sleep and all of that good stuff. So if you guys have any questions for me, please let me know. Oh, also another thing that I wanted to mention is so as a provider, if I could work at another hospital and get a higher salary, there's also like other members of the staff that are not as invested in their work just because of pay rates and things like that. So at my hospital, I feel like we don't have great security. When the patients get agitated and start saying, when am I going to be seen? When am I going to be seen? Security allows the patients to come back in and go to the desk where the providers sit, and they come in and they ask us, how many patients are in front of them. And when you tell someone like, oh, there are 7 or 8 patients ahead of you, and they start flipping out and they start screaming at you, that can be challenging. So I will say 80% of my patients are very thankful and very kind people, but there is a subset of the patient population that can be very aggressive and that can be very nasty. A couple of shifts ago, one of the attendings got spit on. Patients come back and they start yelling at us and saying, I've been waiting for this long, blah, 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 blah. And unfortunately, it's kind of the nature of the beast if you work at an underserved hospital. Like, the patient, does have a right to be frustrated because they're waiting, but I also don't think that they have the right to be abusive. And sometimes when you're in an underserved area, some of the patients can be extremely abusive. So when you have this idea in your head of like, I'm gonna work in this underserved area, you picture yourself as a heroine. You're like doing all this good work in a community that really needs it. Understand that you just spent, you have a bachelor's, then you went to PA school, now you have a master's, you busted your butt to get that master's, you worked hard, you passed the pants. Now you're in the work world. You could probably get a higher salary somewhere else, but now you're in this job where they're pushing you to see as many patients as possible. You're staying late to finish notes, sometimes without pay, and it's hard. I've been sitting at the the provider table or area, and a patient came up one day and said, I'm very concerned. I haven't seen one of you providers move in the last 20 minutes. So I thought it was very funny that that patient said that, and I was trying to catch up on my charts, and that very night I stayed 2 hours late finishing charts. But patients don't understand that. So it's one of those things of like, you feel like you're working really hard to try to provide good care, and especially like you see your colleagues, that you care a lot more than other people in the hospital. You're doing everything that you possibly can, and it doesn't always feel like you're being appreciated. Now, I will say that the majority of the patients are great. Some of my patients hug me even after they've been there for 8 hours waiting on imaging. There's one radiologist reading for all of the campuses, and but sometimes people get directly frustrated with me as the provider because I'm the outlet, I'm the person that they're seeing, and I'm the person that they're dealing with. Or sometimes there's just misunderstandings or miscommunications just because of education level. Like you're trying to explain a process to someone that they're not going to comprehend. Which can sometimes be very challenging. Like I had a father, his son had asthma. I wanted to admit the child to the hospital. This father was didn't really believe in medicine, and it's also like, if you don't believe in medicine, then why did you bring your kid to the hospital? He didn't want his child admitted. He felt like he knew the cure for asthma, and his cure for asthma was marijuana. Like, it's just like, you can't make this stuff up. So sometimes people's views or education level really impact, like sometimes there's nothing that you can do to please your patient in certain populations. Or some patients come in and they're like, well, I need an x-ray. There's nothing you can do to tell that person that they don't need an x-ray. So sometimes you even fall into this category of practicing medicine or doing imaging that you really, really don't need. You know, someone's coming in, they've had back pain for 3 days after bending and lifting, and they didn't try any Tylenol and ibuprofen, and they swear up and down they need an x-ray even though they didn't have any, you know, trauma. And I ask patients, do you think you broke your back? And they're like, well, we have to check it out. You had no trauma. No falls. I don't understand. But that's just the disconnect between, you know, a medical provider and, you know, the average person. Anyways, guys, so I'm talking to you now. So you know that burnout is real, and I don't want to deter anyone from working in an underserved area, but it's not all rainbows and butterflies and, you know, flowers, the moon and the sun and the stars shining down on you. It is very, very hard work. And if you're not careful, it will break you, okay? All right, so the best thing to do is just to take care of you. So when you take care of yourself, that's what helps you to be the best provider you're going to be. I'll also give you guys an update on how I am managing you know, stress from work and still being a productive person in my life, still trying to eat healthy, still trying to, I put on some weight in PA school, so I've been working with a trainer once a week, trying to go to the gym more, trying to improve my diet, and trying to sleep is one of the things I really need to work on. People in emergency medicine also tend to drink a lot of alcohol, or more alcohol than the average person. So I also fall into that category where I drink. So cutting back on alcohol, getting more sleep, exercising, eating right, just to make yourself more healthy, so that you can do a better job at work. Okay, guys, if you have any questions for me, let me know. Bye.